Chapter 2. Matthias screamed aloud with fright inside the cat's mouth. It was sloppy and hot, pink and black, smelling indescribably and seemingly full of huge yellow teeth. Plah! The marmalade cat spat the young mouse out upon the barn floor. He lay wet and sticky, quivering all over, dust and straw clinging to his fur. Instinct warned Matthias to lie inert and play dead. He had no chance to make a run for it, surrounded as he was by the cat's paws. He could not stop his body from quaking badly. He lay staring into the feline eyes, great twin pools of turquoise flecked with gold. The cat stared back at Matthias in disgust. Disdainfully, it wiped a fastidious paw across its soiled tongue and spat as if trying to get rid of a horrible taste.
Ugh. I simply cannot abide the taste of mouse. Filthy little vermin. One can never tell where they've been.
The cat's voice, though cultured, was a high, reedy tenor. It could have sounded comical under different circumstances. Matthias lay as still as possible. The marmalade cat prodded him with an indolent paw.
Oh, get up, you disgusting little beast. I know you're not dead.
Slowly, the young mouse rose to his feet. The cat seemed uninterested in him as a possible food source. Matthias's legs were shaking so much that he had to sit down again. They stared at each other. Matthias could think of nothing to say. The cat spoke again. This time, its voice was indignant.
Well, have you nothing to say for yourself, mouse? Where are your manners? Don't you think you should apologize for leaping into my mouth like that?
Matthias managed to stand again. He bowed shakily. I beg your pardon, sir. It was purely accidental. I fell, you see. Please accept my humble apologies. I am Matthias of Redwall, and I sincerely hope I have not disturbed you in any way. The cat sniffed distantly.
Yes. At least you seem to have some sort of decent upbringing, Matthias of Redwall. I accept your apology. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Squire Julian Gingerbeer.
Pleased to meet you, Squire Julian, said Matthias politely. The cat yawned regally.
You may call me Julian. The title is hereditary. I never wanted it. Squire of what? A broken-down, ramshackle farm building, and a stretch of river over yonder. One has no real friends, no trusty servants, not even a mate for that matter. I suppose the Gingerbeer line will become extinct when I die.
Matthias could not help feeling a certain amount of sympathy for the lonely aristocrat. At least you seem to lead a peaceful life, he said hopefully.
Oh, spare me your platitudes, mouse,
Julian replied in a world-weary voice.
What would you know about loneliness and trying to preserve one's standards in a decaying world? I say, do you think you can manage to clean yourself up a bit? You look an absolute fright, standing there all covered in dust and straw. And while you're doing that, maybe you'd like to explain how you came to be sneaking around my barn.
As Matthias brushed himself down, he related the object of his mission. Julian looked down at him in surprise.
Captain Snow, eh? That old maniac. I've forbidden him the use of my barn, you know. What a thoroughly dreadful bird. He eats anything that moves or crawls. Atrocious table manners, too. All that regurgitating of bone and fare.
Could you tell me where I might find him, please? Matthias asked.
Certainly, replied Julian. Snow lives in a hollow tree these days. I'll stretch a point and take you there, but please don't expect me to introduce you or even talk to him. I've barred Snow from here. When I barred Snow from here, we had a dreadful quarrel. Things were said that cannot be rescinded. I vowed that day never to speak to that old owl for as long as I live.
Matthias sensed that Julian and Snow had once been good friends. Maybe the rift in their relationship was the cause of Julian's present state of fatalism and gloom. He decided wisely not to pursue the matter further at the moment. Riding upon a cat's back was a new and unusual experience for Matthias. Although he took great care to disguise it, Julian was quite an observant creature. As he strode with an easy grace across the farmyard, he remarked idly,
"Your friends, the shrews, are out in force today. Ignorant little things. They think I can't see them. Give Log-a-Log and Gyosim a message for me, will you? Tell them it is quite safe to come into the barn for hay and other items. Snow doesn't roost there anymore. Goodness knows, I certainly won't hurt them. My diet consists of herbs, grasses, and an occasional fish from the river. I gave up red meat years ago. You might also mention that if they must come to my barn, would they please desist from arguing and fighting so much? There's nothing quite as upsetting as quarrelsome little shrews disturbing one's meditations."
Matthias agreed to convey the message to the gorilla shrews. They had arrived at a small overgrown orchard. Julian halted within 20 paces of a stunted oak. As he bade Matthias climb down, he cautioned him.
"You probably can't see Captain Snow, but he's watching us. I can tell when he's at home. Be extra careful, Matthias. The old glutton will more than likely eat you on sight. Typical of an owl. Well, I'm off now. If you get the chance, say Squire Gingerbeer said that he must surely admit he was in the wrong and apologize. Only then can we resume our friendship and live together in the barn. Goodbye, Matthias, and do take care."
"Goodbye, Julian, and thank you," Matthias called after the retreating figure of the last survivor in the Gingerbeer dynasty. The young mouse unpinned Basil's medal from his tunic. He ventured cautiously forwards, holding it aloft. If Julian said that Captain Snow was about, then it must be so. An unearthly screech shattered the silence, followed by a rush of wings. The owl swooped out of nowhere straight for Matthias. Ducking and weaving as Basil had taught him, Matthias waved the medal and yelled at the top of his voice, "Truce! Basil's staghair sent me here! I claim a truce!" He was knocked flat upon his back. Massive needle-pointed talons tore the metal from his grasp. Captain Snow landed in front of Matthias, raising the dust with his vast wings. The young mouse found it hard to believe that such an awesome and impressive bird existed. Captain Snow stood hugely tall, with an incredible wingspan. The owl's pure white plumage was broken only by a few brown bars on the wing and some dark spots on the crown. He had 6 dangerous talons in front, 2 at the back of his legs, and a sharp, heavily curved beak. His eyes were colossal, twin golden orbs with circular black centers. Matthias continued ducking and weaving, conscious that his life hung by a thread. Captain Snow flicked out a talon. Matthias dodged nimbly aside. "State your name and rank. Who gave you my medal?" snapped the owl in a flat, hard voice. Still moving quickly and panting for breath, the young mouse gasped. "Matthias Mouse, warrior of Redwall Abbey. The medal belongs to my friend Basil Staghair. He sends his compliments, Captain, sir." "Stand fast," snapped the captain. Matthias stood rigid. The owl's talons started to inch forwards as if they had a life of their own. The young mouse moved steadily backwards away from the talons. Captain Snow licked saliva from the edges of his beak. It was plain that he desperately wanted to eat Matthias. "What did the cat say to you, Mouse?" he rasped. "Did he mention me?" Matthias repeated the message from Julian. "Squire Gingerbeer says, sir, that if you were to admit yourself in the wrong and apologize to him, then you could both be friends and live in the barn again." As he spoke, Matthias had been moving away from the seeking talons. On a sudden instinct, he dived to one side as the owl pounced. He skipped and ran on a zigzag course away from the murderous bird. Bilked of his target, Captain Snow madly tore at the grass and scattered dust. All at once, he wheeled about and flew upwards, perching at the entrance of his nest hole in the stunted oak. "All right, you can stop running away now, little warrior. Come back here." I want to talk to you. Matthias stood a safe distance away from the tree. Captain Snow shifted from one foot to the other, muttering huffily. Me in the wrong. Never. I won't apologize to that cat. I refuse to. When the owl had finished arguing with himself, Matthias called out, Captain Snow, sir, there's a question that I must ask you. The great snowy owl beckoned towards his hole with a sweeping wing. Listen, Mouse, you can't stand down there shouting up at me. Why not come into my lair, nest? Then we can chat together in comfort. Standing on tiptoe, Matthias could catch a glimpse of the nest. The walls were lined with all types of fur, shrew, mouse, vole, even rat. The skulls and bones of small creatures were hung up as macabre decorations. Matthias smiled nervously. If you don't mind, Captain, I think I'd prefer to stay where I am. The captain cackled raucously and pointed out a talon. So, you'd prefer to stay where you are, sir? Well, I don't blame you. Right, out with it. What's this question you want to ask me? Do you know of Asmodeus, the giant adder, and where I might find him, sir? Matthias called boldly. The owl preened his breast feathers. He cocked his head on one side. I know of everything that moves within my territory, Mouse. Yes, I do know of Asmodeus. I also know where he calls home. Why do you ask? Because the adder has something that belongs to our abbey, an ancient sword, sir. Matthias replied. Ah, the sword, said the owl. I remember the night he passed here carrying it. You'll never get that sword from Asmodeus, a puny little mouse like you. The adder has magic in his eye that would freeze you like a statue. I wish mine could. Matthias felt his temper rising. He shouted angrily at the self-opinionated bird. I don't care if he's got magic eyes, poison teeth, coils of steel, or whatever. I mean to have that sword. I'll steal it from the snake or fight him for it. If I have to, I'll... The rest of Matthias's words were drowned out by the hysterical, screeching laughter of the owl, who nearly fell from his perch with merriment. He blinked tears from his huge eyes. What? Did I hear you say that you'd fight Asmodeus? You? Oh, little mouse. Run away and play before I crack a wing laughing. Oh, dearie me. Are you sure you haven't been drinking old apple brandy? A mouse fighting an adder? Oh my, now I've heard everything. Captain Snow laughed helplessly. Matthias yelled up challengingly. I'll bet you couldn't fight Asmodeus. The owl wiped tears from his eyes with a snowy wing as he hooted. I've never tried, and I wouldn't relish the prospect, little one. The snake and I would probably both end up dead. Matthias called mockingly. That's because you're afraid. Look, I bet I'll fight Asmodeus and win too. But you won't. But I will. Bet you anything you won't. Matthias pointed at the metal in Captain Snow's talons. Bet you that metal I will. The captain flung the metal backwards into his nest. Done! Hold on, Al, Matthias shouted. What are you putting up as a wager? The metal is not yours. You gave it to Basil Staghair. Spreading his wings to their incredible length, Snow screeched, I'll bet anything. Whatever you say, Mouse. Matthias nodded cunningly. Oh, I don't want to take everything you own. Let's just say that you guarantee to return my medal and make a few little promises. Again, the owl had difficulty in controlling his unbridled hilarity. The nerve of him. All right, my little warrior. It's a bet. Name your promises. Right, said Matthias solemnly. You must promise on your oath that if I win, you will never eat another mouse or shrew of any type. Agreed, chortled the owl. In fact, I'll go even further. I promise that if you defeat the snake, I'll admit I was wrong to that stuffy old cat. I'll even apologize to him on bended knees. So there.
On your word as a captain,
Matthias pressed. The owl held out a wing and a leg as he recited. I swear, by my captaincy, and by my illustrious ancestors Nyctea and Glacier, that I, Captain Snow, will return the medal and cleave to my oath if you should win against Asmodeus. The owl broke into laughter again. Oh, this is the easiest bet I've ever made. It'll be like taking the wings off a dead butterfly.
Maybe to you, sir, but not to me,
Matthias countered.
Now, tell me where I may find Asmodeus, Captain.
In the old sandstone quarry, the owl replied. You'll have to cross the river. There are caves in the quarry, passages too. Explore them. You won't find Asmodeus until you are least expecting him. By then, it will be too late. You'll be deader than an icicle in hell. Goodbye, mouse. Matthias turned his back upon the snowy owl and strode off with a string of taunts ringing in his ears. Nice to have my silver medal back, jeered the owl. I'll think of you when I wear it. You should have let me eat you. It'd save you a journey to the quarry. Oh, I almost forgot. You won't be able to give the hare my best wishes. You'll be snug inside the snake. Matthias walked onwards, ignoring the cruel jibes of the owl, through the farmyard and across the grassland, not stopping until he arrived at the fringe of Mossflower Wood. The shrews broke cover and milled about noisily with their endless questions.
Ha! So you got it back then? Why didn't Snow eat you?
Bet you've never seen an owl that size before, huh?
What news of Poison Teeth? Did you find out where he is? Don't just stand there. Tell us! Tell us!
Fierce quarreling broke out. Swords were being drawn as Matthias sought out Log-a-Log and took the black stone from him.
Shut up and stop fighting, you hooligans, or you'll get to know nothing,
Matthias bellowed. An expectant hush descended upon the union members of the guerrilla shrews of Mossflower. Matthias found it hard to keep the contempt out of his voice.
I found Captain Snow. Actually, I was led to him by Squire Julian Gingervier. Does that name ring any bells?
There was an embarrassed shuffling in the ranks of the listeners. Many turned their eyes to the ground, particularly Gyosim and Log-a-Log. Matthias folded his paws. He stared about in disgust.
Oh, yes. I'd just like to thank you all, especially you, Gyosim and Log-a-Log. What a sly, nasty, despicable thing to do, sending me into the barn without a single word of warning about the cat.
Log-a-Log ripped the cloth band from his brow and flung it down. He took the stone up in his paw. Matthias, I speak not only for myself, but for all the guerrilla union. We are very sorry. You must believe that. It completely slipped our minds. We forgot about the cat. You see, we are shrews, not only by name, but also by nature. We argue, quarrel, bicker, and fight so much among ourselves that we lose sight of the important issues. That is the way it is with us. Please, accept our apologies, friend. Matthias retrieved the stone.
I forgive you this once. You say you are shrews, and you call me friend. You tell me that you forget. Let me tell you, I am a Redwall warrior. I always remember who my friends are, and I never forget an injury done to me. However, we will say no more of this. You must listen to me now. What I have to tell you is of great importance. It can change the life of every shrew here. Captain Snow has told me that Asmodeus lives in the old sandstone quarry across the river. He has given me his promise on oath. If I defeat Asmodeus, the owl will never again take the life of a shrew.
When the astonished hubbub had died down, the young mouse continued.
Think about it, gorilla shrews. It would be a double blessing for you.
With Asmodeus dead and Captain Snow held to his oath, you could live in safety from both. And while I'm on the subject, my friend Julian the cat is quite harmless. He will not hunt you. Anytime you need something from the barn, you have his permission to take it, providing you do so quietly, with no fighting or arguing. That is all I have to say to you, save for one thing. Lead me to the quarry. Matthias stood patiently, waiting as subdued conversation went on all about him. Surely they could not refuse so generous an offer. He tried hard to pick up the threads of talk. Some seemed all for it, but others were apparently reluctant to trust his word. Finally, a small, militant-looking shrew came forward and picked up the stone. He addressed Matthias in a very official manner. Our rules say that the quarry across the river is not in Shrew territory, Mouse. Therefore, we cannot go with you. Loggerlog sprang forward and dealt the speaker a mighty blow, laying him flat on his back. You cowardly, ungrateful little fool! Cried Loggerlog. How can you say such a thing after all this warrior is trying to do for us? Gosum grabbed the stone from the ground.
Stop, Loggerlog! You have no right to strike a comrade. He was only stating the facts. Our guerrilla union rules clearly state that no member can be forced to venture beyond official shrew boundaries.
Before Loggerlog had a chance to reply, a riot broke out. Shrews began kicking, punching, arguing, screaming, wrestling, and shouting. The edge of Mossflower Wood was in pandemonium. Matthias held up the stone and tried shouting above the melee. His voice was lost in the uproar. Angrily, he grabbed the nearest shrew and shouted at him. Listen, you! Tell me which direction the river is in, or else! The struggling creature pointed a paw to the northeast before wriggling from Matthias's grasp to dive headlong into the fray. Fury took hold of the young mouse. He waved the stone and cried out, Go on! Fight then, little fools! You and your bossy little union! I don't need any of you! I'll go it alone! And he hurled the stone with a mighty effort. It flew off over the heads of the rioters, disappearing into the wood. Matthias turned on his heel and stormed off towards the river.